Dear guests, thank you very much for coming. We're waiting for a couple more minutes to allow the others to join us, and we will start. Thank you so much.
Who is my companion? Oh. No, I don't know. Nice to meet you. It may be because the face is not there. You're together? You work together? No. Oh yeah? Okay, then that's why we must have seen each other. You're independent. You're independent tomorrow, right? Yeah, no.
We have to talk. Je- Good. Dear guests, on behalf of the Asteroid Foundation, I would like to warmly welcome to tonight's Asteroid Day Space Lecture. Asteroid Day is the United Nations recognized day of asteroid awareness, and every year around June the 30th, our organization hosts special events to celebrate this day. This year, it's a very special occasion for us because Asteroid Day is turning 10. And on this occasion, we have a very exciting lineup of speakers who will tell today the behind the scenes of space missions. So I would really like to invite Marcus Peer, the chairman of the board of the Asteroid Foundation, for a welcome word. Please, Marcus.
Thank you, Anna. So we are 10 years, we are celebrating birthday with you, double digit, first double digit, and many of you have accompanied us through these 10 years. Thank you for that. We wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have this get together, we wouldn't have this platform, we wouldn't have all these people on different continents, in different countries, now being with us also, and we wouldn't have these gorgeous places in Luxembourg without you. Because what we achieved to do is we gathered, we clustered, we forged really a community that is interested in asteroids. But asteroids stand for something, of course. Asteroids are space. So this platform, this Asteroid Day, has become one of the prime platforms, I dare say globally. We are modest people, but we have global outreach for a dialogue on space. So 10 years, 2015, some of you, maybe I know one or two here, have been part of that 10 years ago. It was something between San Francisco and London, I think. 2016, we achieved, or the community of founders of the Asteroid Day achieved that the United Nations acknowledged, took Asteroid Day as an official day in the United Nations calendar. That was 2016. And 2017 was the first Asteroid Day here in Luxembourg. So at the time, Minister of Economy, Etienne Schneider, together with Georges Schmidt, who was the economy ambassador, if you wish, in California, they bumped into the people from Asteroid Day and they said, come to Luxembourg. So since then, we established this foundation that is actually the organizer of the Asteroid Day, and since then we have the really continuous and strong support of the Luxembourg government, whatever political couleur, they were always there, the Ministry of Economy, and as part of the Ministry of Economy and then being independent from it as an agency, as a state agency, of course, LSA, Luxembourg Space Agency, our most important sponsor on the level of the foundation. We wouldn't live without them. But then we've got other sponsors also on board making this possible. You see them on the top here, so you see Luxembourg Space Agency, of course, but it's also the FNR, the Fonds National de Recherche of Luxembourg, and it is André Loche Foundation, and it is also the city of Luxembourg, because without the city of Luxembourg, we wouldn't sit here in this wonderful building. And so we are very, very grateful to all of them for their support throughout the years and for their, fidelity, if we can say, and, commitment, engagement with us. They help us to do what we do, and they help us to fulfill our mission. And our mission over the years has not changed, but we fine-tuned it, and we have formulated it and crystallized it with your help, with the help of all the discussions we had here, and we always got wiser from year to year with the help of the intelligence of all those who are discussing here. But it's basically our mission: raise the awareness for asteroids and space, its potential and its risks. So it's not only things that can fall on our head, it's also things that count as resources. So how can we study both? That is what space science is about. If you want that, you need missions. So from the very beginning in our 100 declaration, 100X declaration, we said we need to up the investment into science programs, into exploration programs, because otherwise we will never know what we have there, what these animals are, So it was always a platform, therefore, to argue, to fight for space science. Nothing has become more necessary these days where actually everything is put into question, whether it's an authority or it's a law or it's a fact. Even facts are no longer accepted. So what we want with this platform also is make the case for space, also make the case for science and fact-based communications. This is what our engineers are about, and this is what our scientists are about, and this is also what business is about at the end of the day, because what Edgar is doing, and he will tell you, it will not fly if you don't base it on facts and science, you know. So Asteroid Day has become a platform also to defend this point of view. The last thing, and very important, is, and I already see some sitting here, we want to talk to the young people. We need the talent. We want to tell people, young people, that actually in their career, in their profession, they do not need to become an astronaut necessarily. And you can tell us how cumbersome it is, and you know how long it takes, and so on, and how much joy and delight it is, but also pain and a lot of efforts. There are a million possibilities, or thousands, let's say, to work in space, and we want the youngsters to understand that. And this has something also to do with the Luxembourg DNA, because space and Luxembourg are not foreigners to each other. You know, this country has invested in space very early, since long time, and our investment into making Asteroid Day a platform to attract talent and to educate is also a commitment to Luxembourg's vision to be larger in space than on Earth. That is a little bit the second key central part of our mission. But hey, let's do what we are here for. Let's look into what reality is and what flies and what you're doing in your practice. And once again, thank you all for joining and being here and part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I would like to invite a very special guest on stage. It's the Italian astronaut Paolo Nespoli, who spent more than 300 days in space and whose career path was nothing ordinary. He used to be in the military, he served in the army and even was on a peacekeeping mission, and he is also a space engineer. So Paolo will highlight our today's topic of the behind the scenes of space missions, and also will talk about careers in space, because astronaut obviously is the career many people dream of. Please, Paolo.
Thank you, Anna, for the invitation this afternoon to speak to you. Thank you to the Asteroid Foundation. Thank you to Marcus. Thank you to Luxembourg for bringing the attention on everybody on this in space first, and specifically on this part of space, which is very important because, you know, I think people more qualified than I am will talk later about asteroids and things like this, talking about, you know, asteroids from the point of view of the fact that they can be a threat. Surely we don't know if, you know, big asteroids, a really big asteroids, that there is one we saw yesterday. Where is Gianluca? Is here. Well, yesterday evening we saw a lecture of an astronomer showing us how these asteroids are rotating in our solar systems. There is going to be one that will pass not very far away from Earth in a couple of years or so. But then we don't know if there will be a new one, a big one that will come and actually hit Earth. And if I'm not wrong, you know, I'm not an astronomer, but I understood that in the life of Earth, 4.5 million years, there were 4 or 5 quote-unquote accidents where big asteroid impacted on the planet and caused havoc on the planet. Of course, if we would be so good in be able to see today an asteroid that comes towards Earth, and we would figuring out that it has enough mass to cause a problem, the question is, would we be able to do something? Or we'll just be able to count the day until the asteroid is going to hit and we are gone? And that's a big question with, I don't have an answer. I think we don't have an answer. We don't have a way to, defend, protect our planet in this case. I think statistics is a little bit on our side. Asteroids don't hit every day. We don't really know, but okay, I think we could think that nothing is going to happen in our life, but eventually we need to protect for something like this. But as Marcus said, asteroids are kind of scary, but there are also resources. In asteroids, there could be rare metals, there could be water, there could be a lot of things that are useful to us. And of course, something can hit us, but something can pass near us, which means we could take advantage of the fact that this mine comes close to us, and instead of being us looking for the mine, we just take the opportunity to have this incredible things flying towards us, and we need to be able to understand how to get all the resources that are there, would be available there. So the topic is very, very important, and of course, at the base of all of this, there are people. Astronauts are people, but there are a gazillion, a thousand of other people that work in the field, engineers, physicists, but even people that, do welding or design or, do things. So there is a lot of possibility in space for people working and find an activity that is useful for their community and enjoyable for them. And we need to tell them that this is the case, because people do not understand. Yeah, a lot of people ask me, I want to be an astronaut, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know, because there is no path to become an astronaut. I don't even know if you ask me, or I think if you ask Krister, how come we become astronauts? I cannot tell you. I cannot give you the rule, you need to do this, 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 and you will become an astronaut. It doesn't work like that. But surely there are more opportunities, and it's, let's say, easier to become, a technical person working for example, the European Space Agency or the Luxembourg Space Agency or any company. There are thousands of companies that are working in space, and all of this is not boring. It could be a very intense, a very rewarding activity. So we just tell people to, pay attention to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and don't be afraid about these topics. A lot of people can get like, oh my God, I cannot do what you have been doing. And I'm like, what have I been doing? It's nothing. So essentially, I tell people that they have everything in them to be able to be successful, and space can provide a lot of opportunities. So thank you for the Asteroid Foundations to focus between all the other things that they are doing to make us focus on the asteroid. Thank you to the Luxembourg Space Agency. Thank you to the European Space Agency. Thank you to all of you that are here today listening about space. Just one quick thing before I leave. I think I feel some kind of special privileged collection with asteroids, because I was on the space station, as Anna said, for about 300 days, and it's interesting how you are on the space station, and it's not that you're there in vacation. The agency see you as the manpower of the space station, so they want you to work, and they schedule you very hard from 7:30 in the morning, more or less, until 7:30 in the evening, 12 hours of work. And you can do all sorts of crazy things or less than crazy things, but it's tiring. But the interesting thing is that evening comes, and on the schedule there is nothing. So it's like, what do I do now? I just wait for 7:30 next morning. And this can be rewarding because finally I can catch up some breath, but then you're there day after day after day. So I started thinking, am I investing my time on Earth in a meaningful way? Possibly yes during the day, but in the evening I felt I was just wasting my time. So I decided I needed to find something that I could do in space that I could not have done on Earth. And one of the things that I found is the fact that I could go or take advantage of the peculiarity of the space station, which is a 400 kilometers spins around Earth at 28,000 kilometers per hour, which means that if it is 10 o'clock in the evening and you're tired, and normally it's night, so you would go to bed, but maybe you don't want to go to bed just as yet, and you go to the cupola and it's dark, you just wait a few minutes and there will be a sunset and there is another day coming. Yes, the day lasts only around 45 minutes, but in those 45 minutes, you are actually zipping around the world, and in an hour and a half, you are actually have the chance, the opportunity to see, all the continents, all the oceans, all the crazy things, and figure out something strange, which is the strangest part, is that you look down, and once in a while, you see things passing by. Those are shooting stars. And it's kind of interesting that, for once you see the shooting stars, and to look at them, you need to look under your feet or under the station, not like this. And so far it's good. But then, if you think a second about it, you feel, well, any of those things could hit the station. And, at orbital speed, even something relatively small is pretty dangerous, can really do some damage on the station. It could even perforate the shell of the module where you're living. You could cause a leak. And so I was kind of thinking about these things, and a couple of times I saw big flashes, because usually they're little things, but you can see big flashes. And there was one specific, and I was lucky enough to take a picture of it, and I sent this picture down to the ESA office in Frascati, where they are looking at these things, and they said, well, that thing was kind of big. If it would have hit the station, probably would have pulverized one or two of your modules. Thank God that it passed like 200 kilometers away. And so it's kind of interesting that, you have these opportunities. There are all these things, there's crazy things happen, but there's asteroids, even more made me think that, those are interesting, there are good opportunities, but we need to take care about it, learn more, and being able to do something in case something big will come to us, or something will pass near us. So, enough of BBB. We'll give you the word of what do we do, Anna? We'll start the dances, or how does it work? You come and dance? Okay.
No, not here to dance tonight, even though great idea, Paolo, and thank you so much for such a great introduction to our today's session. And I'm very glad that you have mentioned the space debris subject, because we actually have here one of our speakers, Sabrina Ndiapane, who is going to talk exactly about this. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce our first presenter, who is going to talk about the challenge that his company encountered. And what I wanted to say is that it's very rare that companies highlight some difficulties that they had. They usually speak about successes, but we believe it's extremely important to show that work in space, it's challenges, but it's also creative solutions. And therefore, I'm really glad to invite Edgar Milik, who is a passionate executive and space enthusiast with 25 years experience in the space technology and governmental sectors. He currently holds the position of Managing Director at GomSpace Luxembourg, a global leader in small satellite solutions, providing products in more than 60 countries worldwide. And also, asteroids are not aliens to you, Edgar. Please, the floor is yours.
So thanks a lot, Anna, for the wonderful introduction. You should not imagine that much, but think about a spacecraft as big as a shoebox. And a spacecraft like that, made in Luxembourg, and now traveling at millions of kilometers away from Earth, is now daring, together with two companions, to discover things and secrets which are older than Earth itself. And this is the story of Juventas. Juventas is a small spacecraft made here by Luxembourgish engineers and an international team as well, who is now traveling together with the Tyvak-made Milani spacecraft, and within the Hera spacecraft of the European Space Agency, manufactured by OHB, in the direction of a binary asteroid system composed of two elements then, Dimorphos and Didymos. Let me show you a bit more about what is our destination there. And the story that you will hear today is a story about daring, struggling, having challenges, and then achieving. What you see here is Didymos. It's our target. You should think about that as a big ball of stone, which is basically silica, so it's a stone-made asteroid, approximately 700 meters in diameter, and with a small companion called Dimorphos. Dimorphos is smaller than Didymos. It's about 160 meters in diameter. And it's circling or let's say it was circling at a rate of 12 hours, at a period of 12 hours around the Didymos. Well, a binary system has a wonderful characteristic that you can make some special science about that. You can study that, see the dynamics. And one particular thing about the dynamics, which is interesting about that, is that with enough power, you may be able to influence the mutual dynamic of the two bodies. And that's what happened in 2022, when the NASA DART mission was hitting Dimorphos and reducing the orbital period by 30 minutes, which was the first sign of our ability to actually operate on celestial bodies with man-made objects, which is a point that Paolo Nespoli was stressing before. Now, the next step in this journey is the Hera mission. Hera is a mission launched on October 7th, 2024, with a main spacecraft and two small companions, Milani and Juventas. And Juventas is the story that we're focusing here, as the satellite that you have here in the structural model, which was made here in Luxembourg. Now, the mission of Juventas is a binary mission as well. So it will help Hera understand how binary asteroids are formed. It will help understand the internal and the external structure. And it will help understanding how objects of this kind interact with other objects as well. But there is a second objective which is very dear to us. It needs to demonstrate that CubeSat, so tiny objects like this one, can do also great science and can go to deep space and achieve things that were unthinkable 20 years ago. Now, here is a brief overview of what is the journey that the family of spacecraft is taking these days. We launched from Cape Canaveral on a Falcon 9 on October 7th, 2024, which was a flawless launch. And we are now, we could say, in the early stages, really. After a few months, we made some checks around Earth, but then the spacecraft started traveling. It made a mass flyby. and now it's traveling direction the binary asteroid systems. Once we get there, end of 2026, that's why I'm saying we are in the early stages of it, there is going to be a set of phases that actually Jan Carnelli will explain even better probably in his presentation. There is going to be an early characterization phase. The CubeSat, which are currently inside ERA, will be released. And then there will be a deeper characterization phase, multi-point investigation, and some other phases. And then finally, we, Juventas, will attempt landing on Dimorphos, which is going to be, as you can imagine, it's a thrill now for the engineers. It will be even more a thrill in the moment when it happens. You are trying to land with a spacecraft that big, with few instruments, on an asteroid which shape you barely know, and which composition you barely know. You know there is a stone, but you don't know how fluffy that stone may be. So quite a daring objective that Juventas is in any case have been designed for, and it's still today being maintained at the distance. We are in regular communication with the spacecraft, as you can imagine. Now, a story of this kind, it gives me a very important opportunity to explain to you and go a bit deeper in what it means to build a deep space probe. As you probably can imagine, building a deep space probe for a small company like us could be quite a mess. Being a mess, it means that at times you lose sight of the incredible thing that you're doing. You're doing that within your teams, you're doing that with the wider ESA team and with the partners, but at times you lose sight of that. You lose sight because there is the next burning fire that you need to extinguish, that piece of software that doesn't work, and a certain equipment that doesn't come, or a certain equipment that you do not achieve to produce. And therefore you have to patch that with another solution. Still is something that when you take distance from, when you reach certain goals in the project, that's where you appreciate what you are really achieving. Now, from my point of view, there are many challenges, but there are three categories of challenges when you're doing a project like that. And I'm just focusing on the challenges of a company or of a team like the one that we have. The first one, I would call it the wider system engineering challenge. You're dealing with a complex system that is flying in space, that should be flying in space, but you're designing that completely for years and years on the ground. So there is a lot of things that you need to predict in advance, and the behavioral system that you will need to predict years in advance, and in an environment which is not the one that is where the spacecraft is truly operating. The second one is the detailed technical challenges. You get a thermal engineer working on a piece of thermal control, and that breaks. So what is that you do concretely in that moment in order to solve that challenge? And the third one is certainly the people challenge. How do you make people interacting and achieving the goal together? Let's go through each one of them in few steps. The system engineering challenge. So in this picture here, you have the payloads of Juventas, so not the entire subsystems. The payload, so there are three primary payloads fundamentally, which is one is also a Luxembourg-made payload, not by us, but by a partner company, which is Jura, the Juventas radar. An inertial measurement unit is a second payload that we have, and GRASS, the gravimeter, to measure the gravitational field of the asteroid, is a third one. And the other ones are kind of secondary but very important payload. There are cameras, there is an ISL, and there is a star tracker on board. Now, imagine fitting all that together with a subsystem inside something like that. And what you can see even in the middle, there is a red element, which is an entire propulsion tank, which is taking 2 units of these 6 units here. So imagine the engineering challenge to do that, and not only doing that, but doing that knowing again that this thing will fly, and you will have to do it so that it will work flawlessly when it's flying and when it's operating at a distance. So, what is one of the things that we do in order to overcome that challenge of designing something complex like that? They are the so-called models or engineering models. And we have a number of them, but here there are three that we have used ourselves. FlatSat, Reduced Engineering Model, and the Structural Thermal Interface Model. So these are devices that engineers are conceiving early in the development of the mission, like the FlatSat, in order to make sure that you can get to the point of understanding how the spacecraft will behave when it's flying. The FlatSat is something that is accompanying you throughout the mission, really. And for anybody still staying in Luxembourg, feel free to pass by the office because we still have the FlatSat in the office, and we are still using that FlatSat now that the spacecraft is flying in order to test procedures and to troubleshoot whenever we see something anomalous. The reduced engineering model is used also in the early stages, a bit afterwards than the FlatSat, and is used for de-risking, finalizing and de-risking a lot of interfaces. While the structural and thermal interface model, and this one is an example of a structural model, it is used in order to be able to simulate what is going to be the structural and thermal behavior of the spacecraft. Something that, as you can imagine, on the ground is very different to what it is on, while flying or during the mission at the asteroid. The second challenge is more minute. It really goes into the specific technical challenges that you face when you're designing and developing a spacecraft like that. This picture is just an example of a diagram that we have during the assembly, integration, and the testing of the spacecraft, which is a phase which is lasting about 1 year. You can see several steps here. Some of you may find it familiar, some of you in the field. For others, it's going to be already very complex. I tell you, this is one of the simple diagrams for an AIV. And you see that there are several steps taking place there. You should imagine every box, for example, the testing box, as a myriad of challenges in itself. Let me dive into one of them. The solar panels. The solar panels are attached to the spacecraft when it is in the launcher. They are attached to the spacecraft as we speak, now that we are flying with Hera. And in the moment when we arrive at the asteroid, of course, we will be deployed from Hera, and we will need to open those solar panels. Now, the mechanism to opening that, it's an engineering challenge in itself. And actually, our team was also facing the question, okay, how do we make sure that we are designing that right? We are on Earth. Gravity is extremely different than the one that we will have around Dimorphos. So if you're on Earth and you need to test something that will need to operate in thermal, mechanical, and the gravity condition very different, you need to find devices. Well, the cost-efficient solution for doing that is the adaptable hardware with a deployment jig that we have done at GomSpace. And it is a set of elements done with 3D printed components, simulating the gravity compensation, and actually operating in the lab, deploying the solar panels very much like they would be deployed during the actual operation of the spacecraft. I hope that with these examples, I'm giving you a bit of the sense of what is the day in, day out of an engineer, right? And the day in, day out of an engineer is not to imagine how beautiful space is going to be. The day in, day out of an engineer is to make sure that the bloody mechanism is working fine. And you will not have a challenge when you are actually deploying that around the asteroid. Last category of challenges, people, teams, and human interaction. So you should imagine Hera and Juventas as a collaboration among many different teams and individuals across Europe. Here is a selection of the countries, and coordinated by the European Space Agency. All these people, which are composed of people speaking different languages, having a different cultural background, one of them maybe coming back from the beach in the afternoon and the other one in the freezing cold of the northern Europe, all of these people need to meet, communicate, understand each other, sharing information, at times among competitors, and agreeing on things that needs to be done. All that is a challenge in itself when you have such a plethora of different individuals and teams. And this is not an aspect that must be considered secondary. It's actually probably very much at the center, and I'm sure Paolo will be able to confirm that on the International Space Station, these kind of aspects are critical. If you have to live there for more than 300 days or something like that, you need to make sure that people are getting along one another. Same thing in the project at a different scale. Well, in order to achieve that, you need to make sure that the network is working, the network of people, on top of the fact that the network themselves, the databases, the data are available. The role of the European Space Agency has been critical in that sense. They were able to create that medium that was permitting the different teams to communicate. It goes back again to the engineering challenge of making sure that you configure your documents properly. And then you don't get to the next test 6 months afterwards without knowing what was the version that you needed to use. The engineering challenges of teams are really going in this minute thing. What version of the document are we considering? And finding the wrong version of the document at some point in time may delay practically the mission by months. And there is another aspect, of course, which is the psychological one. Selection of people working in a team is become absolutely primary, on top, I would say even before, the hard skills. It's not only the space station, but you want to have people in the office, in the meetings, in the project, interacting in the right way and with the right mindset, willing to meet, discuss, share, and finally agree on things. And this is not a secondary, and this is one of the most important aspects that we need to consider. All in all, there is a message into that, which is that if you want to dare and achieve things, and if you want to go fast on executing, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, as Juventus and ERA are doing, you need to go together, which is very much at the core also of the way that we at GomSpace work. Now, the last image I want to leave you with is one of the most emotional for any space engineer in this job. And it is the moment when all your work, all your long nights, dreams, and hope are loaded at the top of a launcher, which is about to be launched.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and lift off. Go Hera, go Falcon, go SpaceX.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. Main engine cut off.
Call for MECO.
Stage separation.
Successful stage separation.
MVAC ignition.
MVAC ignition and westbound power on stage 2. Coming up will be fairing deployment. And for the first stage, as we saw it in the background, farewell 1061, and we thank you. There's a camera view as we switch. You can see Hera inside the two halves of the fairing.
Fairing separation.
And successful payload fairing separation.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, Edgar, for your presentation. Honestly speaking, I know what microsats are, and each time I see one, I can't believe that this thing fits in something that is even smaller than a tower computer. And the footage of Hera mission really gives me goosebumps. So much work, so much passion, so much energy put in it, and thank you so much for highlighting this whole process and giving us a 360 outlook on that. Thank you very much, Edgar. And I would like to take one question from the audience. Anyone? Oh, yes. You're up there. I'm coming. Well, I didn't have a chance to do sports today, so.
Hello, thank you very much. It was very interesting. Just a very short question from my side. Do you happen to have a vacuum chamber?
We do. Indeed, let's say the thermal and vacuum chamber that are used for testing satellites are extremely important to simulate the environment of space. So the question is very pertinent. We do have, it is one where actually these spacecraft can fit perfectly, and I would say can fit perfectly and not more. So we cannot have a couple of spacecraft into that one because we have a very small one ourselves. This is about well, something like that, I would say. So probably 2 meters by 1 meter or something like that. There are far bigger thermal vacuum chamber, right, for bigger spacecraft. And I have to tell you, in the previous company I was working for, we had a vacuum chamber which was that big. We were able to fit just electronics there for some testing.
Thank you. And also, well, today I really want to put a little bit of spice, and I would like to ask one of your colleagues to challenge you with a question, and I would like to invite Ian Cornelli on the stage.
Hello. Edgar, actually my question is very simple. What was more challenging for you? Was the human aspect of the technical aspect over the Juventus project? You can say ESA as well, eh?
No. I think that there is always a priority, right, in these things, and I think, and it's not a lie. I think that the human aspect was the most challenging, and I'm referring to a number of things. I'm referring to what I mentioned before: the interaction among teams, multinational, dealing with the customer or with, let's say, with a prime contractor for the bigger spacecraft. But there is also the aspect that, particularly when you are a small company, we are a company of 200 people today, well, you need to be able to manage things very, very well. So there are certain passages of your life where you need to make sure that you have the right resources in the right amount if you want to survive. And that's why I think that from a human perspective, these passages in life happen very much. Now, we take pride of that. Here, I mean, my presentation was a lot about daring and achieving. GomSpace is a company that went through these kind of challenges. Others cannot tell it, but we can tell what happened, and we can tell that we survived, and we were able now to be on an important growth path. But these things are happening, which are making a challenge also. It was also a challenge in Juventus, as you know very well, by the way. Thanks.
And now to our next speaker, Ian Cornelli, who actually was there at the Hera launch. Weren't you, Ian? Yeah. Ian Cornelli is a seasoned space systems expert who joined the European Space Agency ESA in 2005 as part of Advanced Concepts team. Throughout his career, he has led pioneering mission concepts to asteroids, playing a key role in establishing ESA's planetary defense program. Ian, thank you very much for being here today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thanks for being here. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. I used to come every year for the Asteroid Day, And I must say the last couple of years, because of Hera and because the amount of work, I could not join, so it's a privilege for me. Tonight I'm going to give you a little bit different talk than I used to, because normally I talk about the planetary defense system the European agency has put in place in the last 20 years and all of that, but I was asked to give a bit behind the scenes of Hera. So I will tell you of some stories, and so it's more of an entertaining talk of the, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say, but I will say it's the shit list of our project that Mark Brophy, that is actually there, has put together. Mark is one of the first I recruited on Hera, talking about documents. There are many things you should know. First of all, I'm no expert. I've done a lot of mission concepts and things like this. And then when Hera got approved, for a long story, I ended up being the manager. I was not supposed to be the manager, and I never managed a space mission before. So for me, it was totally new. And I learned a lot over the process, and I owe everything to the team. So it's really the human adventure. But one lesson I learned immediately was the fact that I had to recruit a special person in the project, and he was the documentalist. And that's Mark. So I would like to give him a round of applause. Mark, please stand up. Because it's incredible the amount of information and the amount of data we generate in project. I think we have more than 500,000 documents, God knows how many. I asked once to count the number of pages, and we cannot get out. So information is really key. And there's another thing that you should know is that if we made Hera, it's probably because of WhatsApp, because communication is key. And if you want to launch a mission in 4 years to deep space, which is something we never done before, you really need to think differently and also in communication schemes. So I don't have so much about all the details about the mission. If you're interested, today, tomorrow, I'll be around, and I have plans, hours of talks. Just a few numbers on Hera. It's 18 European countries together, plus Japan that participated. The cost in today's economic condition is about 380 million. We built it and launched it in 4 years, which is really a record for a deep space mission. Normally, to give you an idea, is between 8 and 12 or 15 years to do something like this. We have 12 instruments and we have two CubeSats. So we are not better than anybody else, and just to make it, but the way we conceived the mission was completely different, meaning we try to rely as much as possible on proven technology, some not, like the CubeSats and instruments we had to invent, but whatever we could find in the market, we would use. So for those who know, and I'm actually particularly grateful to Luxembourg, because we tried in 2016 to get together a mission called AIM, Asteroid Impact Mission, which was not successful at the ministerial. And it was at the time, Minister Schneider, who gave a very, very emotional speech and trying to get the mission. So I'm really attached to Luxembourg. But 3 years later, we came back to the ministers of Europe and we got the approval. So this is just a picture of what we call the asteroid deck, is the face of the spacecraft looking at the asteroid when we get there next year. And you see all the instruments, and Milan and Juventus are in those boxes that you see there. So what was the first step? Partially wanted, partially unwanted is the preparation. To get on this journey, we worked for almost 15 years. I started myself in 2005 with a concept called Don Quixote. But we studied asteroid missions really at large. And in all kinds of different asteroids, all kinds of different orbits, all kinds of different payloads, also sample return, scouting mission, impact mission, whatever. That gave us all the preparation to know which kind of equipment needed to be taken on board from which country. And the reason I say this is because when you propose an optional program, it means you have to convince the countries to put the money, and then you need to tell them for what element they're paying for. This short video, I will not go through all of it, but gives a little bit the complexity of the puzzle. Every single equipment, every single screw, every single cable, there are 7 kilometers, by the way, in here, you need to decide who's going to pay for it. And then it's only when you get all the countries together that they decide, and then you can actually make it happen. And this is quite common to most of the missions. This is what it looks like to integrate a satellite that is about 1.2 tons in a cubic meter. So it's also quite condensed. To go fast, we built it in two halves. One half was built in Germany, the other one in Italy by Avio and one by OHB. And then we put the two halves together. That was one way that we managed to save time. I told you about the infamous sheet list. This is something that is not even complete, but let's say some that over the time it actually helped us to look back sometimes and see all the things that we overcome and gave us a bit of strength to move forward. It goes from terrorist attacks, which actually happened. There were some people in Germany throwing bombs to our prime contractor. But even before that, the day we got the mission approved, we were cheering and partying for 24 hours, and then COVID came. And so when you talk about managing an international team over more than 20 countries and 100 industries and so on, COVID was the last thing you really wanted. Things like you have your equipment finally built in a company and there was an accident and the company burned, and of course our hardware with it, to all kinds of things like pieces of payloads being lost, air into electronic components, or even companies sending by mistake components that were only for display and they were empty inside. We managed to find that before soldering. So all kinds of things, and broken hardware. And of course, so let me go through some of these things. So when you put together a project like this, of course, you need to do costing, and you need to quote and estimate how much it's going to cost. And there's one line that I always think about now that I put together 5 years ago, which is called unknown unknowns. And how much do you put, in terms of money for unknown unknowns? And I had no idea. So I think I put 3-4 million euros. And to me, it looked like a large number. Now, when I look at this list, I kind of laugh, because none of the things I kind of thought of ever came to this list, not even close. Like a World War II bomb blocking your test. This is nothing I would have thought could happen on our mission. So I told you about COVID. So COVID hit. What happens is that all the materials, all the electronics, nothing is available. Of course, there are items we call long lead that require a lot of time that we already bought, but by chance they disappeared, like titanium. Even if we had bought them, then the company sold it at a higher price on the market somewhere in the world. Terrorist attack, fires, lost payloads, farmer strikes. That was an interesting one. So you're ready to go, and then you have farmers blocking a whole city, and your satellite is blocked, and you have a plane waiting for you. Hurricanes, World War II bombs. At the end, let me do a little spoiler. The day of the launch, the 7th of October, we had a 36-second launch window. And between two hurricanes, I will come back to that. And we had 20% launch chance in the morning when we went to the launch base, and we launched spot on. So I think that piece of luck was due to all the things we went through. Sorry for the text, but I wanted to give you a bit of a perspective of the different things we've done on this project. So first of all, when you have an asteroid, you have a very short launch window, which means it's either that date or you put the satellite in storage or your mission is dead. So to do that, we first of all split the payloads in what we call core and opportunity. Core is really the only payloads you need to achieve the mission objective. And we designed the mission to be able to achieve the objectives with only one payload, which is the camera. And by doing that, of course, all the other teams got a little bit of pressure when we told them, look, if you're not in time, we go anyway, and everybody delivered. But that was not the spirit. The spirit was to really be able. We had also a mixture of what we call new space, old space, and if you talk to a big prime, when there's so much money involved and they're worried if we use, let's say, non-typical space equipment like automotive parts, they get a little bit scared. So what we did was to implement some kind of firewalls to protect the satellite from possible failures of equipment. That was also a way to save time. And then we never stop. We really never stop. Day and night working. If a review failed, we allowed to continue certain parts that were not critical, and we only stopped the few critical ones and solved it immediately, taking very fast decisions. We trusted the teams, always taking the decision at the lowest levels, no management, no big boards, except major reviews, but on a daily basis, everybody was taking own decisions and on their own responsibility, and many other things. Anyway, I'll tell you a few stories. So this is the spacecraft as we tested. Before we launch, of course, as Edgar said before, we need to do a lot of tests. This was one that made me particularly nervous because it was the vibration test. And I can assure you that when you get through the some frequencies and the satellite starts really to make a hard noise and you think that everything is going to fall apart, a few months before launch, it's a long day, but nothing broke there, broke after. On the management, I told you about trust. This is super important. The day we lose trust in one another, as Edgar said, this is really a team job. Things don't work, so that's a lesson learned. And then the other thing is that, yes, you have to take it personal. I mean, to achieve a space mission, something like that, the level of dedication on everybody, actually myself as a manager, my biggest task was tell my team to stop working because they were so committed to the mission. It was incredible that I really had to oblige people to take off. But at the same time, of course, not everybody, when you have 100 or 200 people working on a project, had the same level of commitment. And you cannot expect everybody to have the same level of commitment, right? So that's also a tricky one. On Hera, we tried to break what we call the customer barrier. I don't know if we achieved, but on many things, we tried really to work hand in hand with industry. I never felt I was the customer. I just felt I was a team member. Of course, we were paying and overseeing the work, but we built hardware in-house. We did testing for industry. We bought hardware for industry when it was faster. So all kinds of things. We coded some pieces of software ourselves. Maybe another added thought that people tend to like, we were so short in time that the final version of the onboard software of the satellite was actually compiled on the flight from Europe to the launch base and sent by WhatsApp to Germany for checking before uploading on the satellite. So that's a useful use of internet on an airplane. What else? Yeah, we use, okay, there are some management ones, and then risk. Of course, we took risk. It was not, I mean, we were not, well, sometimes we called each other pirates, but we did things knowing what we were doing. But it's true that in space it's so complex that, and that if you think about all the possible wrong things that can go wrong, you can spend years and years and years and test and retest and rebuild and optimize, and then you never achieve. So there's a moment where you have to take a hard decision. Luckily, on missions like this, we don't have human astronauts. So these type of decisions can be taken, of course. And then the secret formula is the team. And here it was not coordinated, but it's really the same conclusion, no? Is having a team that is dedicated, motivated, inspired, and empowered to do a mission like this. And then there's the secret formula is that even on a moment like this, the guy there with a long beard was just waiting for the picture to be taken and go back to work. Testing. These are some pictures of Hera being tested. On the right is the acoustic test. This is the most powerful disco in Europe. Is a huge chamber with 150 decibel speakers, and that's where we test for the sound vibration generated by the rocket. And on the left is the thermal vacuum chamber that we used for Hera. So there was a question before, that's what the Hera one looked like. And that's when our onboard computer broke. Actually, I remember that night. Of course, these things always happen on Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, Saturdays, Sundays. We were always afraid of Friday. Friday was the worst day of the week because everything, all the worst things always happen on a Friday afternoon and spoil the weekends. But the computer, yes, broke at 2 o'clock in the morning, and big panic because we were only a few months from launch. And then we had to reopen the satellite, ship the computer to the manufacturer, disassemble, see what was broken, do a lot of tests. In the meanwhile, fortunately, we were talking about models. We had an engineering model of the computer sitting in a test bench. We put that one into the satellite, into the flight unit, so the satellite could continue its own testing. And then the funny thing is that our mechanics, we were talking about different jobs. Paolo was mentioning also people, the mechanics who do build the satellites, they were too big to fit into the satellite and because the computer was placed before we closed it, so we had to find a trained young lady with small fingers who we could force inside the satellite to change the computer. So this is also people management, right? This is a test, the electromagnetic compatibility, and with Juventus CubeSat on the right, where we test that all the electronics work together. And then finally, the day comes when you close Hera in the transport container, and we ship it to the launch site. And I must admit, I made a lot of mistakes. A few mistakes. One was this day, because I thought, okay, Hera now is in the container, it's safe. We go to the launch base, we launch, nothing can happen. And that was a bad mistake. That's yeah. So on the flight, we stopped in Shannon in Ireland, and the power generator broke. Of course, it was a Friday. When we arrived, a big thunderstorm, so a lot of delays there as well. But then something happened. Falcon 9 is an incredible machine, never failed. I think they had thousands of launches, flawless launches. And of course, at the end of September, just before our flight, they had a big anomaly and Falcon 9 was grounded. And that was the longest week of my life, because we were trying to see if us Europeans, who had no voice, but could convince the FAA to authorize the launch for Hera. And we launched on a Monday, and the authorization came on Saturday night. So that was how tight it was. And then we had two hurricanes. Hurricane Helene fortunately went north, but then we were kind of relaxed. But then Milton came, and looking at the news, if you look on the top right, this nice message from the media, the storm will get worse on the Monday morning, and that's exactly when we were planning to launch. That was the launch site. On the left is where we processed Hera, where we fueled the spacecraft, did the last test, uploaded the last software, as I told you the story on the flight, put the CubeSats into Hera, and then went to the launch site. Sorry, let me go back. Now, I have a complementary movie now to show you to the one of Edgar, where, let's say it's launched, and I wanted you to show a little bit the reaction of the people. And from their faces, you understand what managing all this shit list, all the problems really meant for everybody.
After the speeding bullet, we're supersonic on Falcon 9. And counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 40. After clearing the tower, we begin to tilt or gimbal the end from MECO.
Stage separation.
Successful stage separation.
Hera separation confirmed.
This was a tense moment, because when you deploy the satellite, it's an automatic sequence. Everybody's waiting for the sequence acquisition, which is moving this plot from this. You see that? I mean, everybody was super tense. There's nothing. then finally we got the signal, which meant we had contact with the satellite and we had a mission. And this is when absolutely everybody was crying. So yes, I was tense. The auto sequence was tested only a few weeks before launch. And the other funny story is that we have a review in ESA called the Qualification Acceptance Review, which normally you do a few weeks before launch to say, yes, you can launch. And on here, we closed it formally on the launch pad. These are beautiful pictures. So we launched and we went immediately on a trajectory to Didymos, to Mars actually. And these are the first pictures we took with a navigation camera looking back towards the Earth. It's in the infrared, so you see the full Earth and the Moon orbiting. And I always think about astronauts one day maybe going to Mars, and this could be what they will see when they leave our planet. And then as I said, we went to Mars to gain energy, and we designed the trajectory in a way that would fly close to Deimos, one of the 2 moons. These on the right is some of the images we took on the approach, and then I want to show you some beautiful pictures of Deimos. Deimos is actually potentially considered an asteroid. Scientists don't know if it's a captured asteroid or a formed from a collision of a big body with Mars. So these are some of the pictures. Blue Mars in the hyperspectral, so it's an instrument looking at the different wavelengths, and also in the thermal, so the temperature of Mars and the Moon. And you see how hot the Moon is, which means it's super rocky, absorbing a lot of heat. Today, actually, this is a couple of days ago. Here is now, I like to think like this a lot because now we are closer to Didymos, 46.5 million kilometers than anything else, more than closer than the Earth and Mars and of course the Sun. So we're getting there. And with this, I thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you very much, Ian. I must admit that you are a challenge champion, judging by all you've been through with the team. But I must say it's incredible, and thank you very much for this example of resilience. I think I will switch the microphone. For this example of resilience and, you know, also the honesty and humor with which you were telling these stories, because I imagine the wide spectrum of emotions your team has been through. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. We unfortunately don't have time for questions, but we have a networking session right after here at Cercle Cité. You just cross the little bridge and you will have a chance to talk with Ian there. And now, moving to Sabrina Ndiapane, our last speaker for today. Sabrina has been working for more than 10 years in the space industry, from engineering to project management, up to strategy and business development for new business initiatives. She was the head of on-orbit servicing for Thales Alenia Space before joining ClearSpace in 2023, where she is now the managing director of ClearSpace Luxembourg and the chief commercial officer. Sabrina, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Asteroid Foundation for inviting me. I understand I'm standing between you and drinks, so I'll try to gain the time my previous speakers took more than planned to talk. Just quickly, so for me, actually, I don't know how to feel because we had a picture of how Asteroid can be scary, how missions can be scary. I'm a startup, we haven't launched yet, so thank you for all the heads up and lessons learned for me. I think one thing I want to say is, before diving in what we do, we talk a lot, today obviously we're talking about Asteroid, but actually I guess the threat is closer than we think, and maybe as we are human, we probably created a bit the threat that we have currently in space. So I'm just going to go into what we do in ClearSpace and what is the big picture for us and how we can all contribute to to building a sustainable and environment for space beyond Earth. So what you see here is basically one of the missions we have planned with ESA, which is called ClearSpace 1. So ClearSpace is actually a startup that was created in Switzerland in 2018, and then we moved into Luxembourg in 2022. We're now based here. This is our home, this is our headquarters. And our objective is to remove debris from space and make sure future satellites do not become debris by providing servicing to them. So when we think about space in numbers, so I was mentioning, yeah, we were talking about asteroids, but basically there's a lot of elements in space. Basically, you can imagine that for the 60 years of activities, we didn't really think about what we could do with what we launch. It's like imagining the highway without roadside assistance, so it was a bit like this in space. So there's more than 20,000 satellites that has been placed, and actually more than half of them don't work anymore. And the question we want to ask is basically how we can provide a solution for this, because we want to basically keep making sure that all these satellites we have launched is still working for everything we do on Earth, for when you monitor your weather, when we want to go to one place or another, for GPS, and all these elements that we use so much on Earth rely so much on satellites. So our objective is to make sure that we can still exploit space and we can still work in a good, sustainable way. So what we do, basically, as I was explaining, our goal is to make sure that we can provide services to satellites, so they will be always providing then services to us on Earth. So what you can imagine in terms of services is inspection. For instance, if there's an issue for a satellite, we can go around it and check if it's working fine. We provide life extension. This is basically what we do mostly in Luxembourg, and my team is working on it, is you can imagine that if the satellite is still alive, you can actually dock to it and still extend its value if it's still working. If it's just running out of fuel, why not just give it an extra life? Talking about fuel, one of the ways as well also to make sure a satellite can survive is providing refueling to it to prolong its mission. And at the end of its life, if we can basically dispose of it to make sure it's not going to be a threat for incoming other satellites afterwards. And in the future, if we get there and satellites are prepared, we can imagine repairing them and giving them a second life, and maybe tow them to a recycling station in space where they could be reused fully. For that, we have 3 missions that we are developing. That's one of the challenges we have in our 3 entities. So one is led from Switzerland. It's the first one you saw here, which is about removing an Proba 1, which is one satellite. We do this in partnership with OHB. The second one is called Clear. It's from the UK. It's pretty much similar. We're disposing of 2 other satellites, but this one is itself can be reused. We can refuel it. And the third one, which is the GEO in-orbit servicing mission led from Luxembourg, it's to make sure we can do station keeping of GEO satellites in orbit. So all these 3 missions, once they will be launched, we will be very happy, and I hope we won't go through what we went through. Probably a lot of that is coming to my way. But once it's done, we can actually, on top of, I would say, the usual space thing, we will be even more stressed because we have to do rendezvous in space and capture satellites, so that will be very interesting when we will do that, and very stressful. How do we go forward with that, basically? Everybody talk about the team and things like this. So today, for me, that's one of the most important things, is having an outstanding team to move forward. And here how we are based in these different entities, as I mentioned, and we run our business across all the different entities. It's for the students who are here, if you're interested to see how a company, is not necessarily everybody's in the same place, how it functions. So we basically have technical competences across the entity, and the resources are shared. So here you can imagine it's basically how our engineering team is divided. You have avionics, GNC and sensors, robotics, mechanisms, flight software, the one who do simulation, the one who will then integrate all that. We have the ones who take care of the mission, the system engineer, the program manager. And because we also do the service, then we will operate them as well. We also have part of that ground segment and operations. And so in the company, across all the members, we are well around more than 60 now. We have 600 years of experience combined altogether. And everybody comes from different places, which is also great, different companies, and that's, I think, the nice thing being in a startup, because everybody has previous experience, and also from different schools and different universities. So I was also asked to talk about challenges, which, well, I call them challenges, but it's also fun facts for us. It's more like for our end, there will be actually a technical side to it, what the engineers go through. And because we are a startup and we also are in a world when we need to do commercial missions, I'm also the chief commercial officer, so I'm always thinking about the business, how to plan as a startup, so I also want to mention that as challenges for us. So everyday challenges. So I think the first one that goes, I'm also an engineer, so in that point of view, it's always about how do we design and develop the best solution that can fit with the missions we do. We saw what we're doing rendezvous, we're capturing satellites, so it's always about how do we do that, and how do we do that in, I would say, the less risky way possible, because we don't want to create more debris. So there are regulations that exist, but still, I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have with this kind of new mission. It's about thinking about something that will be safe, because we are here saying we want less debris, and we're not here to create more. So that's, I would say, one of the big challenges we have with the engineers. The second one for us is, well, it's a topic that is very competitive as well, and at the same time, you have to find what is the best innovation for it. So it's like basically you're saying to the engineers, you have to always push further, find something that never was done before, and that's sometimes difficult when you know there's like other companies like you who's trying to find the same solution. And it goes together with the last one, because basically you're saying to the engineers, find the best solution possible, but don't forget about price, and don't forget about the customer expectations. So I think one of the main challenges in the technical side, it's about finding that solution that at the same time is not too risky, at the same time that fit the price, and at the same time answers to the customer. So that's a bit like you're giving the engineers the possibility to do a lot of things, and you have to constrain them a bit. So it does not always necessarily go together, but this is something, unfortunately, as a company, as a startup specifically, when we want to survive, that's a regular challenge for us. And from more the business side, and this is mostly for me also when you manage, is as a startup, you have to plan the next 10 years ahead of you. And at the same time, you're managing the next 6 months, because you never know what's going to happen in the 6 months, if the cash is going to run out, or if you're going to go bankrupt or something. So that's, I would say, a regular challenge, and the one that gives me the most gray hair, I guess, on a regular basis. So that's one of the ones that I can really point out as an everyday challenge. And being here in Luxembourg, it's also hard to a lot of companies, and it's also a very competitive market. So finding the best talent to make sure will help us deliver these missions, and also you have to keep them. We are lucky enough to work in nice missions, so I think they're passionate enough to do that. It's making sure, we have the right people who can think enough and the way we want to, and at the same time deliver what we are looking for. And the last one for me is also, keeping all this talent. As I said, Luxembourg is home to many companies, and you have to be sure that they are improving and that everything is going well for them in the work, and then they really like it, because otherwise, they can always leave. So I guess that's the challenge that I wanted to point out for me on my side for this presentation. And one thing that is also it's not really a challenge, but for us, it's been a bit of thing we really push through, because we talk a lot about debris, general public do understand that, but is there a need, is there a market, who really wants to pay for these missions, basically? So communicating what we do has been very important for us to raise a bit this awareness around the world, and we were lucky enough to have this possibility. We had this possibility to communicate this, and we were actually named one of the best invention of time in 2023. So this is something for us very important as well to sensitize the general public about this topic, because we don't see space, but so much is happening there and so many nice things. So this is a part of, I would say, a challenge, but we are tackling it in a very good way for that. So that's it, I'm done. Thank you very much. If there's any question, I don't know if we have time, but maybe take one. Thank you very much.
Question, okay.
Thank you. Lovely presentation. Thanks very much, Sabrina. Very interesting and quite challenging, right? This is really sort of one of those things that's never been done before. My question is, there's obviously quite a bit of interest, certainly Luxembourg being the epicenter of trying to, there's a lot of startups in this space. Sometimes it looks a bit crowded, and there's such a variety of different approaches to how you do this. So I was wondering if you have any thoughts on if there's an international standard for satellites, like actual hardware interfaces, like the International Docking Standard or the ISS shuttle era. We had the PGDFs to grab, or other spacecraft that was sort of station keeping with you. So is there sort of any cross-industry collaborative or standardization opportunities here to, so that it can be something that would allow all the companies in the area to collaborate better?
Well, I think the reason why I would say yes and no, in the fact that the first part is for us in ClearSpace, we focus on answering, the short-term needs, so satellites that are not prepared or don't have any interface. So what we call uncooperative, unprepared rendezvous and docking, because that's what's happening at the moment. Satellites are not prepared. So it's true that for us, we developed the technology for that in priority. Once we know how to do that, I guess if satellites would be prepared, it would be easier. Coming back to your answer about standards, yes, there's a lot of discussions at European level between the companies about, especially the refueling, for instance. We see this need coming. There is not yet a standard interface because, well, there's a lot of discussion, and when it comes to defining standards, it always takes a lot of time. There are organizations that exist, one in the US, for instance, called ComFirst. They are trying to put like standards for that. For these interfaces. Then you have to coordinate with Europe as well. There's like initiatives led by the ESA or the European Space Agency and the European Commission towards these kind of standards, with putting integrators and customers together to find what could be the best way. But we haven't really come up yet with what would be the best standard. It's a lot of discussions. And you can imagine is if there's different companies, who will be the best standards to win? You may think you get the best market. That's why for us we focused on, we don't need standards, we'll just capture whatever you want. By the time they will be prepared, then it will be easier afterwards.
Do I have time for a quick one? It's actually for the three speakers. Any of you can answer it. Because what you're doing requires reducing the volume, reducing the weight. So you must have been very sort of aware of miniaturization, hyphenation of techniques, hyphenation of devices. So there must have been plenty of innovation in what you're doing. It's nothing to do with what's happening up there, but have you actually innovated something which is new for use on Earth? Devices which can be used on Earth, which require miniaturization or hyphenation of techniques?
Good question. I would say each space mission typically pushes the boundary in one or the other domain, but it's not everything. As I said in the beginning, not everything you see there is completely innovation. We borrow it's like every car, every generation, they optimize and you benefit from what others are doing. In our particular case, I would say that the most impactful technology on Earth is radiation-tolerant components that you can use in the medical sector when you do MRI and things like this. This is what came out. So, and the reason I say this is because, especially on the CubeSats, we use lower quality components that are cheaper for a number of reasons. And but they are and they need to be because they need to be cheaper, and typically those don't work so well under certain types of radiation, and so we went through a lot of campaigns, radiation campaigns, and then we managed to find the right compromise between the design, the electronic design, and the radiation tolerance of the components to make it work under radiation. And those type of boards, electronic boards, now you can use them in highly radiative medical sector for tumors and things like this. This is, I think, the most relevant example I can think of. But okay, there are a lot of spin-offs, and we also have at the European Space Agency whole team working on what we call technology transfer. But although everything looks very adventurous, space is not the most innovative area. Most of the innovation, the fastest innovation is in your pocket. Those mobile phone, electronics, computing, it's unbelievable. The computer we have on Hera is probably less powerful than what you had 15 years ago with Pentium 4. So, but we push boundaries in other ways, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting the importance of space down to Earth. I would like to thank Sabrina for her presentation and also the topic of sustainability, because of course there are numerous space missions being launched, but who is going to clean up, right? So thank you once again. Thank you all for being here with us. I would like to invite you to join the networking session, and please, tomorrow we have an Asteroid Day festival in Cercle Cité. It's a day full of fun activities. You can definitely bring your kids, brothers, sisters, and also listen to very exciting space talks. And you will see the speakers of today here tomorrow. So really looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. Thanks a lot. And I also would like to thank University of Luxembourg S&T for their invaluable support. Thank you very much.